Welcome to Love Diaries. Want to make any woman miss you? It's not about tricks, it's about mastering your emotions and knowing when to step back. Real attraction comes from patience, emotional control, and being content with who you are. The Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca taught that true strength in relationships is about self-worth, not seeking validation. When you give space and focus on your own value, women naturally start to miss you. Stick around for 5 powerful tips to help you become that man. Don't forget to subscribe. The first thing you need to understand is the power of emotional control. In modern dating, there's an overwhelming temptation to act on every impulse, every desire, and every anxious thought. When you meet someone you're interested in, it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly texting, calling, or trying to keep her attention. This is the opposite of attraction. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In relationships, this principle holds just as true. When you want something too much, you give away your power. You begin to act desperate, and desperation is one of the most unattractive qualities a man can have. Emotional control means having the ability to manage your impulses and desires without letting them dictate your actions. It's about knowing when to act and when to pull back. Imagine this. You've met a woman you really like. The chemistry is undeniable. But instead of immediately trying to connect with her at every opportunity, you maintain your calm. You allow the relationship to develop naturally, without forcing it. You don't bombard her with texts or overwhelm her with your presence. Instead, you focus on yourself, on your own passions, your work, and your life. This controlled detachment sends a message that you're not desperate for her attention, but rather you're someone who has your own life, your own goals, and your own emotional balance. Over time, this creates a magnetic pull. When you don't constantly seek her validation, she begins to notice your absence. And it's in that absence that she starts to realize your value. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't care, it means you care enough to keep your emotions in check and not let them dictate your every move. This is something that took Marcus Aurelius years to master. He understood that to be a true leader, whether in his own life or in his relationships, he needed to control his emotions first. Only then could he make sound decisions and maintain respect. If you can master emotional control, women will begin to miss your presence not because you're playing games, but because they recognize that you are in control of your own emotions, and that, in turn, makes you infinitely more attractive. The second crucial lesson is about cultivating your own life and identity outside of the relationship. Too often, men lose themselves in their pursuit of a woman. They become so absorbed in the connection that they neglect their own personal growth, their hobbies, their career, and their friendships. It's an easy trap to fall into, but it's also one of the most damaging things you can do. When you allow a relationship to define who you are, you place your sense of self-worth in the hands of someone else. This is not only unhealthy, but it also leads to a lack of attraction. Women are naturally drawn to men who have their own lives. They're not interested in men who are emotionally dependent or always available. Instead, they admire those who have passions, ambitions, and goals that extend beyond the relationship. This is where the wisdom of Seneca comes in. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, famously said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." A man who is truly free is one who has his own identity, who is not defined by the presence or absence of someone else in his life. To make a woman miss you, you need to be a man who is fully immersed in his own world, someone who is not just existing for the relationship, but living a full, rich life that she can admire from afar. This doesn't mean being distant or uninterested in her. Rather, it means you have enough self-respect and independence to not need her to complete you. Instead, you bring value to the relationship by being your best self, someone who is constantly growing and improving. Imagine you're a man with a deep passion for music, a thriving career, or a close-knit group of friends you cherish. You're not waiting around for the woman to fill the void in your life. You are already living with purpose. When she sees that you're independent, confident in your pursuits, and emotionally self-sufficient, She will naturally begin to feel the absence of your presence. And it's in this absence that she starts to miss you, not because you're playing games, but because she recognizes that your life is complete, even without her. And that makes you all the more attractive. The third key to making a woman miss you is about creating space, not just physically, but emotionally. It's one of the most counterintuitive concepts in relationships, yet it's also one of the most powerful. In our fast-paced, instant gratification world, we are often encouraged to stay in constant contact, share every moment, and always be available. But this is exactly where many men go wrong. Constant presence may seem like a way to show affection, but in reality, it can suffocate attraction. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, often reflected on the importance of solitude and introspection. He believed that peace of mind and true understanding could only come when one took time to be alone, away from distractions, to reflect and cultivate inner strength. Relationships, just like any other aspect of life, need balance. Space is essential for any meaningful connection to grow. If you're always there, always present, always responding immediately, it creates an environment where both you and the woman lose the chance to miss each other. There's no room for longing, for that magnetic pull that comes from absence. You've heard the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. This isn't just a romantic ideal, it's grounded in real human psychology. When you create space in a relationship, you allow both parties to retain their sense of individuality. You allow the relationship to breathe and grow naturally. Imagine this scenario. You're in a relationship where, instead of constantly texting or calling, you take time for yourself. You focus on your work, your passions, and your own growth. You don't make her your sole focus. This subtle act of stepping back creates a space where she starts to miss your presence. She begins to notice what it feels like when you're not around, and the longing for your attention builds. But this isn't about playing games. It's about understanding the natural rhythm of a relationship. Just like in the great works of history, where great leaders were never desperate for validation, true power comes from knowing when to step back. When you embrace emotional space, you don't lose connection, you elevate it. And that's when a woman truly begins to miss you. She feels the absence, but in that absence, she also experiences the strength of your self-sufficiency and the quality of your presence when you choose to give it. The fourth lesson in making a woman miss you is about embodying strength and leadership, not just in big, dramatic moments, but in your everyday actions. A key trait of masculine attraction is the ability to lead with purpose, not through arrogance or control, but through quiet confidence and direction. This doesn't mean trying to dominate her life or always having the answers, but it does mean taking charge of your own life in a way that naturally influences those around you. When you lead yourself with strength, others, including women, are drawn to that energy. The Stoics often spoke about virtue and the inner strength that comes from living a life aligned with one's values. Seneca, for example, believed that a man is not good because he is good for others, but because he has learned to be good for himself. This principle is vital when it comes to relationships. If you want to make a woman miss you, you need to be someone who is not only emotionally self-sufficient, but also mentally and spiritually grounded in who you are. You have to lead your own life, first your career, your ambitions, your friendships, your mental health, and do so in a way that radiates calm assurance. It's this inner strength that makes you attractive. When you lead with purpose, you naturally become someone who commands respect. You're not following the whims of others. You're living according to your own principles. Women are drawn to this energy because it gives them something to respect, admire, and even rely on. Think of the great men in history, the ones who were looked up to, not because they were constantly seeking attention, but because they were leaders in their own right. They had a sense of direction, an unwavering sense of purpose that came from within. A woman will miss you when she sees that you are a man who leads by example, not because you're controlling, but because you are strong enough to know what you want, what you stand for, and where you're going. You become a steady rock, someone who brings clarity and stability into the chaos of life. And when you give that kind of leadership in your relationship, she will naturally begin to miss you when you're not around. The fifth and final piece of advice in making a woman miss you is perhaps the most important. Be a man of integrity. Integrity is the cornerstone of any strong relationship. It's the quality that binds trust, respect, and attraction. Without integrity, everything else falls apart. Women, like all people, can sense authenticity. They are drawn to men who are true to themselves and to their word. In a world full of superficial interactions and fleeting promises, integrity stands out like a beacon. If you want her to miss you, you must be consistent in your actions, unwavering in your values, and honest in your dealings with her. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent in the face of challenges, being honest even when it's uncomfortable, and acting with honor regardless of the situation. When you show integrity, you show that you are a man of substance. Women respect this, and respect, as we all know, is a key ingredient for attraction. Imagine this. A situation arises where it would be easy to lie or manipulate to get what you want. Instead, you choose to be honest, even if it's difficult. You choose to stand by your word, even when no one else is watching. It's in these small, often unnoticed moments that your integrity shines the brightest. When you act with integrity, you become someone who is reliable, dependable, and trustworthy. These are the qualities that make someone miss you when you're not around, not because you're playing games, but because your presence offers something valuable: truth. When you embody integrity, you create a foundation for lasting attraction. She will miss you, not because you're constantly available or pursuing her relentlessly, but because she recognizes the depth of your character. Integrity builds trust, and trust builds love. When you are a man of your word, when you live by your values and stick to them, you become someone irreplaceable. In the end, it's not the flashy gestures or constant attention that makes a woman miss you. It's the quiet power of knowing that you are a man of integrity, and that will always stand the test of time. To make any woman miss you, you need to stop relying on tricks, constant communication, or playing games. Instead, focus on becoming a man of emotional control, self-sufficiency, strength, and integrity. These are the qualities that create lasting attraction and deep emotional connections. The key is simple, yet profound. When you master yourself, when you focus on building your life with purpose and conviction, you become someone whose absence is noticed. When you give her space to miss you, you create a dynamic where she not only longs for your presence, but also deeply respects who you are. A woman misses you not because you're always there, but because you've built a life that is magnetic and fulfilling on its own. Remember, it's not about seeking validation from her. It's about being the best version of yourself, a man who is grounded, emotionally intelligent, and capable of stepping back when needed. The next time you wonder how to make her miss you, remind yourself of these lessons: emotional control, cultivating your own life, creating space, leading with strength, and acting with integrity. These are the things that will leave a lasting impact on her, and ultimately, they'll make her miss you in a way that's deeper and more meaningful than anything else. If you found this advice helpful, subscribe to Love Diaries, and remember, real power in relationships comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself.